the dim light of her small city apartment. Emma sat curled on the worn-out couch, her hands resting lightly on the curve of her belly. The quiet hum of the city outside was muffled by the thin walls, but inside, the silence was deafening. Only days ago, she'd been certain of her future, a life shared with her fiancé, filled with plans and promises. But now, those plans lay shattered, scattered like the torn pieces of the letter he'd left behind. She traced the jagged edges with trembling fingers, the words, "It's over," etched into her mind like cold steel. The pregnancy, once a beacon of hope and new beginnings, now felt like a weight she carried alone. Every kick from within was a reminder of the life she was responsible for. And yet the fear of what lay ahead gnawed at her relentlessly. The apartment, cluttered with half-packed boxes and forgotten memories, seemed to close in around her, a physical manifestation of the uncertainty that had taken root deep inside her heart. Before we continue, make sure to like and subscribe to never miss a new video. And tell me, where are you watching this video from? I love seeing all different people come together for these stories. Emma's phone buzzed softly on the coffee table, breaking the stillness. She reached for it hesitantly, expecting another call from friends offering sympathy or perhaps a reminder of the loneliness she felt. Instead, the screen displayed a number she didn't recognize. Her thumb hovered over the answer button, a flicker of curiosity fighting against the exhaustion. "Hello?" Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Is this Emma Carter?" The voice on the other end was calm, professional, yet carried a warmth that surprised her. "Yes, speaking. This is Mr. Collins from the estate attorney's office. I'm calling regarding an inheritance you've recently come into. A distant relative, your great-aunt Margaret, passed away last week and left you a property." Emma blinked, the news washing over her like a sudden gust of wind. "A property?" "Yes, an old motel located just outside of town. It's been in her family for decades, but she had no direct heirs other than you. She left the ownership and management of the motel to you in her will." The words felt surreal. She barely remembered Margaret, a name that floated on the edges of her childhood memories, a woman she had met only a handful of times during family gatherings long ago. The idea of inheriting anything from her seemed almost impossible. "Why me?" Emma's voice cracked, the disbelief evident. "According to the will, your great-aunt hoped you would carry on a legacy tied to the motel. She even left a letter addressed to you, which I'll be sending along with the keys and documents." Emma's mind whirled as she tried to process the information. A motel? What could she possibly do with a rundown property while she was pregnant and freshly abandoned? The thought of managing a business felt overwhelming, almost absurd. Yet, beneath the rising tide of doubt, a fragile spark of something else flickered to life, curiosity perhaps, or the faintest glimmer of hope. The call ended, leaving Emma staring at the phone as if it held the answers she so desperately sought. The room around her felt colder, emptier, but also somehow charged with possibility. She looked down at her belly, where life was growing silently, unknowingly tethered to a future she hadn't planned, but now had to face alone. The inheritance was both a burden and a lifeline, a crossroads in a journey she hadn't chosen, but now had to navigate. As night deepened outside her window, Emma sat back and let the weight of the news settle. The old motel, forgotten and weathered by time, awaited her arrival. It was a place tied to her family's past, a place filled with stories she had yet to uncover. And perhaps, in its faded walls and empty rooms, she might find the strength to start anew. The morning light seeped through the cracked blinds of Emma's cluttered apartment, casting long shadows across the scattered remnants of a life once filled with plans. She sat at the edge of her bed, rubbing her hands together in a futile attempt to warm them against the chill that had settled deep inside her chest. The night's revelations replayed relentlessly in her mind. The call from the attorney, the unexpected inheritance, the letter from a great aunt she barely knew. Each detail felt like a fragile thread tethering her to a future she was not sure she wanted. Around her, the apartment was a chaotic collage of half-packed boxes, discarded clothes, and forgotten dreams. The walls, once bright with hope, now seemed to close in, suffocating under the weight of loneliness and uncertainty. The looming presence of her pregnancy added a quiet urgency to every thought, every breath. She was carrying a life that deserved more than despair, more than a cramped city apartment and a broken heart. Emma's fingers trembled as she reached for the envelope resting on the cluttered kitchen table. It was heavier than she expected, sealed with an old-fashioned wax stamp pressed with a delicate M. The handwriting was elegant, flowing, and unmistakably her great aunt's. She hesitated, then broke the seal, pulling out a single sheet of paper yellowed with age. "My dear Emma," the letter began, "if you are reading this, then I have passed on, and with me, a piece of our family's history. This motel, worn and weary though it may be, holds stories and secrets I hope will guide you through your own storms. It is more than just a building. It is a refuge, a place where broken souls have found healing and hope. I trust you will find its true worth, just as I have." Emma's eyes blurred as she read the words, the weight of responsibility mingling with a strange sense of destiny. Could she, a woman grappling with heartbreak and impending motherhood, truly breathe life into a forgotten motel? The thought was daunting, almost laughable, yet beneath her doubts stirred a cautious determination. She folded the letter carefully and tucked it into her coat pocket. The keys lay beside it, heavy, cold metal that felt oddly comforting in her palm. It was a tangible connection to something beyond her pain, a chance to step away from the chaos of her current life and into a new, uncertain chapter. The decision to leave was not made lightly. Emma spent the morning pacing the small space, her mind a whirlwind of fears and hopes. The city, with its noise and memories, no longer felt like home. The apartment, once a sanctuary, had become a cage. She needed space, space to heal, to breathe, to prepare for the life growing inside her. By mid-afternoon, she packed a single suitcase, filling it with essentials and the few belongings she couldn't bear to leave behind. Her phone buzzed intermittently with messages from friends and family, but she ignored them all. This was her journey, one she needed to take alone. As she locked the apartment door behind her, the air outside felt crisp and invigorating, a stark contrast to the stifling atmosphere she left behind. The city's familiar hum faded as she walked to her car, the weight of the keys in her pocket a steady reminder of the path ahead. Driving away from the city was surreal. The buildings gave way to open roads, and the sky stretched wide and unbroken. Emma's thoughts drifted between the past and the future, between the pain she was leaving behind and the hope she clung to. The motel awaited. A place of mystery and promise, whispered about in her great-aunt's letter and now etched into her destiny. That evening, as she settled into the passenger seat, Emma reached again for the letter. Her eyes scanned the final lines, where her great-aunt had written, "Look beyond what is seen, for the motel holds more than just rooms. It holds the stories of those who came before, and perhaps your own story yet to be told." The words echoed in her mind, a challenge and an invitation. Emma's fingers brushed the keys, her grip tightening with resolve. The road ahead was uncertain, but it was hers to travel. With every mile, she felt the weight of despair lighten, replaced by a fragile but growing sense of purpose. The night deepened around her, the city lights fading into distant stars. Emma was leaving behind the ruins of a broken engagement and stepping toward an unknown future. The motel was waiting, a silent witness to the past and a beacon for what might come. In the quiet of the car, with the hum of the engine as her companion, Emma allowed herself a small, tentative hope. This inheritance was more than an old motel. It was a chance to rebuild, to rediscover strength she hadn't known she possessed. And as the miles rolled under the wheels, Emma felt, for the first time in a long while, that maybe, just maybe, she was ready to begin again. The highway stretched endlessly ahead, a ribbon of asphalt disappearing into the fading light of dusk. Emma gripped the steering wheel with steady hands, her knuckles pale against the worn leather. The rhythmic hum of the tires against the road was a steady pulse beneath the quiet swirl of her thoughts. Outside the car window, the landscape shifted from the familiar urban sprawl to fields and distant hills, the world growing quieter with every mile she put between herself and the city she'd left behind. Her mind wandered, tracing the fragile threads of memory and hope tangled within her heart. The pain of the breakup still throbbed beneath the surface, sharp and raw, but alongside it flickered a cautious light. The inheritance, the old motel, was more than a place. It was a promise of something new, a chance to reclaim a sliver of control over her shattered life. Yet with that hope came a flood of questions, uncertainty pressing in from all sides. On the passenger seat beside her lay the letter from her great-aunt, its edges worn and the ink faded, but still legible. Emma reached over and unfolded it once again, her eyes scanning the words as if they held secret answers. It spoke of refuge, of healing, of stories etched into the very walls of the motel. But it was the small, folded photograph tucked inside that caught her breath. The photo was yellowed with age, its corners curled and softened by time. It showed the motel in its prime, a bustling place alive with movement and laughter. Cars lined the gravel parking lot, and people leaned against the railings of the porch, faces bright with hope and camaraderie. Emma studied the image, imagining the lives that had passed through those doors, the joys and sorrows that had woven together there. The sight was a sharp contrast to the rundown building she expected to find. The motel, she realized, was more than just a crumbling structure. It was a vessel of memories, a keeper of untold stories. That thought stirred something deep within her, a yearning to uncover the truth behind the fading photograph and the letter's promise. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Emma's car approached the small town that marked the motel's location. The streets were quiet, the storefronts dim and shuttered as the evening settled in. Her heart quickened with a mix of anticipation and apprehension. This was the crossroads where her past and future collided, where the path ahead would begin to take shape. Turning off the main road, she followed the directions scribbled on a hastily drawn map included in the envelope. The road narrowed, lined by towering trees that whispered in the gentle breeze. The air smelled of earth and pine, a stark difference from the city's concrete and exhaust. Emma inhaled deeply, as if the scent carried away some of the weight she'd been carrying. Then, through the trees, the motel came into view, a weathered sign swinging lazily on rusty hinges, the faded letters barely readable. The building itself stood solemn and quiet, its paint peeling and windows clouded with dust. The gravel lot was overgrown in places, wild grasses pushing through the cracks. Emma's breath caught as she took in the sight. It was far from the lively scene in the photograph. Yet beneath the decay, she sensed the echoes of its former life. Pulling into the lot, she killed the engine and sat for a moment, the sudden stillness pressing in around her. The keys in her hand felt heavier now, a tangible link to the history she was stepping into. She traced the edges of the motel's sign with her gaze, wondering about the countless footsteps that had crossed this threshold, the stories that had unfolded within these walls. Her fingers brushed the photograph again, a reminder that this place was once alive, with hope and community. Emma resolved to find that life again, to breathe new purpose into the motel's tired bones. Yet beneath that resolve lay a quiet fear, the fear of failure, of the unknown, of confronting the ghosts of the past and the uncertainties of her own future. As twilight deepened, Emma stepped out of the car, the gravel crunching beneath her boots. The air was cool against her skin, and the distant chirp of crickets filled the silence. She approached the office door, its wood worn smooth by years of hands turning the handle. The lock clicked open easily, the door swinging inward to reveal a dim interior, bathed in the fading light. Inside, the motel office was a time capsule. Dust motes floated in the beams of light, filtering through the grimy windows. A faded counter stretched along one wall, behind which rows of empty mail slots and hooks lined the space. The scent of aged wood and must lingered in the air, mingling with a faint trace of something floral, perhaps remnants of the past. Emma's eyes were drawn to the counter, where a small drawer sat slightly ajar. Curiosity compelled her forward, and she knelt to peer inside. Beneath the counter, taped carefully to the underside, was a small key, its metal dulled but intact. She lifted it gently, turning it over in her hand as a shiver of anticipation passed through her. What secret did this motel hold? What stories lay hidden behind locked doors and faded walls? The key was a promise, an invitation to unlock not just a drawer, but the mysteries of a legacy she was only beginning to understand. Emma tucked the key into her pocket and took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment settle around her. The motel was more than a place to escape her heartbreak. It was a crossroads where past and future intertwined, where she might find the strength to heal and the courage to build anew. As the last light faded and the stars emerged overhead, Emma stood in the quiet office, her heart steady with resolve. The road behind her was long and fraught with pain, but ahead lay a path uncertain and uncharted, a journey she would face one step at a time, guided by the light of hope and the promise of what might be. The morning sun rose slowly over the horizon, casting a pale light on the motel's weathered facade. Emma stood outside the office, the cool breeze tugging at her jacket as she took in the sight before her. The motel was a shadow of its former self. Faded paint peeled from the clapboard walls, and the once bright sign creaked ominously on its rusted hinges. The gravel parking lot was uneven, patches of grass and stubborn weeds pushing through the cracks, reclaiming the land inch by inch. The town beyond the motel was quiet, its streets empty in the early hours. Emma felt a mixture of solitude and resolve settle within her chest. This place, isolated and neglected, was now hers. The weight of that ownership pressed down, heavy with expectation and uncertainty. Yet, beneath the surface, a flicker of possibility stirred. She stepped toward the office door, the wood rough beneath her fingers as she grasped the handle. The lock clicked softly as the key turned, granting her entry into the dim interior. Dust motes danced in the streams of sunlight, filtering through grimy windows, settling on faded wallpaper and cracked linoleum floors. The air was thick with the scent of age. Stale wood, must, and something faintly floral, as if traces of the past still lingered in the corners. Inside, the office was a capsule of forgotten days. A worn desk sat near the window, cluttered with yellowed papers and a tarnished brass bell. Rows of empty mail slots lined the back wall, each labeled with room numbers long out of use. Emma's footsteps echoed softly as she moved through the space, the silence both comforting and unnerving. Her gaze fell upon the counter, where a small drawer caught her attention. It was unlocked, slightly ajar as if inviting her to explore. Kneeling, she peered inside and found it empty save for a single slip of paper folded neatly in the corner. Carefully unfolding it, she discovered a handwritten note in delicate script. To the one who finds this, know that the motel holds more than rooms. It holds memories and healing for those who seek it. A shiver ran down Emma's spine. The words echoed the letter from her great-aunt, reinforcing the sense that this place was steeped in purpose beyond its crumbling walls. She rose and moved toward the door, leading to the guest rooms, the floorboards creaking beneath her steps. The hallway stretched ahead, lined with doors that bore the marks of time, faded numbers, chipped paint, and tarnished doorknobs. Emma hesitated before the first room, her hand trembling slightly as she reached out to turn the knob. Inside, the room was sparse, but clean, the bed frame sturdy despite the worn mattress. A small table by the window held a dusty vase, its surface cracked but still holding dried flowers. Sunlight spilled through the curtains, casting a warm glow that seemed to breathe life into the space. Emma's eyes traced the walls, imagining the stories they had witnessed, the laughter, the tears, the quiet moments of solitude. As she moved from room to room, a pattern emerged. Each space bore signs of care, however faint. A neatly folded blanket, a forgotten book, a note tucked beneath a pillow. These subtle touches spoke of guests who had once sought refuge here, people who had found solace within the motel's embrace. Returning to the office, Emma's fingers brushed the underside of the counter where she had previously found the key taped beneath. She retrieved it, wondering which door it might unlock. Her heart quickened at the thought of hidden spaces, secrets waiting to be uncovered. Exploring the hallway further, she found a door near the end that differed from the others, sturdier, with a heavy latch and no number. Her breath caught as she inserted the key into the lock. It turned smoothly, the door creaking open to reveal a small room tucked away from the rest. Inside, the space was cozy and inviting, a stark contrast to the faded rooms lining the corridor. Soft cushions adorned a worn but comfortable armchair, and shelves lined with books and photographs filled one wall. The scent of lavender lingered in the air, mingling with the faint aroma of aged paper and wood polish. Emma stepped inside, the quiet enveloping her like a warm embrace. On a small table rested a leather-bound journal, its pages yellowed but carefully preserved. She opened it gently, finding entries filled with stories from past guests, tales of hardship, hope, and healing that had unfolded within these walls. One passage caught her eye, written in a familiar hand. "This place is a sanctuary for the lost and weary. Here, broken souls find rest and hearts begin to mend. May those who come after continue this legacy of care and compassion." Emma's breath hitched as she closed the journal, the weight of responsibility settling anew. The motel was more than an inheritance. It was a calling. The rooms, the hidden sanctuary, the stories, they all pointed to a purpose greater than herself. Stepping back into the hallway, she felt a renewed sense of determination. The challenges ahead were daunting, but within the motel's faded walls lay the seeds of hope. Emma resolved to breathe life back into this forgotten refuge, to honor the legacy left by her great-aunt and those who had come before. As the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the floor, Emma stood in the quiet motel, the echoes of the past mingling with the promise of a new beginning. The journey ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in weeks, she felt the stirrings of something powerful. A chance to heal, to build, and to find strength in the face of loss. The late afternoon sun filtered through dusty windows, casting long shadows across the motel office as Emma sat at the worn desk. The creak of the old chair beneath her, a soft accompaniment to the quiet around her. The small drawer she had found earlier remained open before her, the metal key resting beside a stack of yellowed papers and faded photographs she'd uncovered tucked away in the back of a filing cabinet. Among these relics, one item drew her attention more than the rest. A leather-bound diary, its cover cracked and softened by years of handling. Her fingers trembling slightly, Emma lifted the diary, feeling the weight of its history settle in her palms. The name embossed in gold on the front read, Margaret, the same as her great-aunt's. A shiver ran down her spine as she realized this might be the key to understanding the motel's true nature. A window into the life and purpose it had served long before neglect had taken hold. With a cautious breath, Emma opened the diary to the first page. The handwriting was elegant, flowing script that spoke of care and conviction. The entries began decades ago, chronicling the motel's early days under Margaret's stewardship. As Emma read, the monotony of the faded rooms and peeling paint seemed to dissolve, replaced by vivid images of a vibrant refuge. Margaret wrote of travelers arriving at all hours, weary souls seeking shelter from storms, both literal and figurative. The motel, she explained, was never meant to be just a place to rest for the night. It was a sanctuary, a haven for those carrying burdens too heavy to bear alone. Women escaping abusive homes, men recovering from loss, families rebuilding after tragedy. The motel's rooms had witnessed whispered confessions, tears wiped away in the dark, and the slow, steady work of healing. One entry detailed the creation of a special room, set apart from the others, designed to offer comfort and safety to those who needed it most. A space where visitors could find solace without fear of judgment, where kindness was the currency and hope the promise. Margaret's words resonated deeply with Emma, the echoes of her great-aunt's compassion reaching across the years. As the diary unfolded, Emma discovered stories of guests who had come broken and left transformed. Letters of gratitude carefully preserved in the pages, testimonies to the motel's quiet power. It was clear that Margaret had poured her heart into this place, committing herself to a mission far greater than mere business. The realization settled over Emma like a warm blanket. This motel was not just a worn building or a forgotten inheritance. It was a legacy of healing and hope. And now, that legacy had been entrusted to her. Closing the diary, Emma allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. The weight of her own pain and uncertainty mingled with a newfound sense of purpose. She was not alone in this journey. The motel's past inhabitants, guided by Margaret's vision, had paved a path she could follow. Determined, Emma rose from the desk and moved toward the window, gazing out at the overgrown grounds bathed in the soft glow of dusk. The motel's faded exterior belied the richness of its history, and she vowed to honor that history by breathing life back into its walls. Her fingers brushed the key in her pocket, a tangible symbol of the trust placed in her hands. The road ahead would be difficult, but with the diary's words as her guide, Emma felt ready to embrace the challenge. As twilight deepened, she returned to the diary, reading late into the evening. Each page revealed more of the motel's heart, a tapestry of stories woven together by Margaret's unwavering commitment to healing. Emma knew that by preserving and continuing this legacy, she could find healing for herself as well. In the quiet of the office, surrounded by the whispers of the past, Emma made a silent promise. She would restore the motel not just as a business, but as a sanctuary, a place where broken souls could find refuge and where her own story might begin anew. Emma stepped out into the cool morning air, the motel's silence wrapping around her like a soft shroud. The previous evening's discoveries had left her mind abuzz, but the dawn brought with it a determination mingled with a quiet urgency. There was much to explore, much to understand. The motel was a puzzle with pieces scattered in faded rooms, forgotten letters, and whispers of the past waiting to be uncovered. She began her inspection with the guest rooms, the doors lined up like sentinels along the peeling corridor. Each creaked open with a reluctant groan, revealing spaces that bore the marks of time and neglect, but also traces of recent life. The faded wallpaper peeled back to reveal layers beneath, and small tokens caught her eye. An abandoned book on a cracked nightstand, a threadbare blanket folded neatly on a bed, a forgotten photograph slipped between cushions. In one room, Emma found a weathered envelope tucked under the edge of a mattress. Heart quickening, she opened it to reveal a bundle of letters, their ink faded but still legible. They were messages left behind by past guests, notes of gratitude, apologies, and stories of struggle and recovery. One letter spoke of a woman who had found refuge here after fleeing an abusive relationship. Her words filled with tears and hope. Another detailed a man's journey to rebuild after loss, his gratitude for the quiet comfort the motel provided shining through. Emma sat on the edge of the bed, the weight of these voices settling over her. The motel was more than a building. It was a living testament to resilience and healing. The letters were echoes of lives touched, reminders that even in the darkest moments, there was light to be found. Her footsteps led her to the far end of the hallway, where a faint outline on the wallpaper caught her attention. The pattern was mismatched, the wallpaper slightly loose, as if hiding something beneath. Kneeling, Emma carefully peeled back the paper to reveal a narrow door, cleverly concealed from casual view. Her heart pounded as she reached for the handle. The door opened to a small, cozy room bathed in soft afternoon light. Unlike the other rooms, this space was warm and inviting, furnished with plush cushions, a low table adorned with candles, and shelves lined with comforting mementos, photographs, trinkets, and handwritten notes. The scent of lavender and vanilla lingered in the air, mingling with the faint aroma of old books and polished wood. It was a sanctuary within a sanctuary, a place designed for healing and reflection. Emma sank into a cushion, the softness a balm against the rough edges of reality. On the table lay a journal, its leather cover worn but cared for. Opening it, Emma found entries from guests who had spent time in this hidden room. Stories of pain met with compassion, of wounds tended with kindness. The journal was a tapestry of healing, each page a thread woven into the motel's legacy. As she read, Emma felt a profound connection to those who had come before her, their courage and hope flowing through the words. The room was not just a refuge for guests. It was a symbol of the motel's true purpose, a place where brokenness was met with understanding and strength was nurtured in quiet moments. Rising, Emma ran her fingers along the shelves. the memories held within them whispering promises of renewal. She understood now that her role was not merely to repair walls or manage bookings, but to carry forward the spirit that had sustained this place through decades of hardship and healing. Stepping back into the hallway, Emma felt the weight of responsibility settle firmly on her shoulders. The motel was a living entity, its heartbeat steady beneath the dust and decay. And within its hidden room, she had found the heart, a sanctuary of hope waiting to be rekindled. With renewed purpose, Emma began planning the work ahead. Repairs and renovations would be necessary, but more importantly, she would nurture the motel's soul, honoring the stories etched into its very fabric. She would create a haven for those who needed it most, a place where healing could take root once again. As the sun dipped lower, casting golden light across the worn floors, Emma paused to breathe it all in. The road ahead was uncertain, but the motel's quiet strength had already begun to seep into her bones. Here, among the faded walls and hidden sanctuaries, she would find the courage to rebuild. Not just the motel, but herself. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows over the motel's gravel lot as Emma was organizing a few scattered papers inside the office. The quiet stillness was suddenly broken by the crunch of footsteps, gravel shifting under the weight of an approaching figure. She looked up, wiping her hands on her jeans, to see an elderly man emerging from the dusty road that led away from the town. He moved slowly, but with a steady purpose, his weathered face etched with lines of time and experience. His eyes, sharp and clear beneath a worn cap, held a glint of recognition as they met hers. Emma felt a flicker of surprise and curiosity as he paused at the threshold, his gaze taking in the motel's fading sign and the neglected state of the property. "Afternoon," he called out in a gravelly voice, stepping inside. "You must be the new owner." Emma nodded cautiously. "Yes, I am. Emma Carter." The man smiled faintly, extending a hand. "Name's Harold Jenkins. I lived in this town most of my life. Knew your great-aunt Margaret well." Emma shook his hand, feeling the roughness of years in his grip. "It's good to meet you, Harold. I've been learning about the motel's history. It's more than just a building, isn't it?" Harold's eyes softened, memories surfacing behind them. "More than you know. This place was a beacon for folks hurting in ways nobody else could see. Your great-aunt ran it like a sanctuary. People came here when they had nowhere else to go." Emma gestured toward the worn walls. "I found the diary she kept, the stories she wrote about the guests, the special rooms she created for those who needed it most." Harold nodded slowly. That room saved more lives than anyone could count. She believed everyone deserved a second chance, a safe place to heal without judgment. Emma's heart tightened at the weight of his words. "I want to carry on that legacy, but I'm not sure where to start. The motel needs a lot of work." Harold chuckled softly. "The walls need fixing, sure, but the heart of the place is still here. It's in the people who come through those doors. If you hold on to that, you'll find your way." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a faded photograph, extending it toward Emma. "Here. This was taken years ago, when the motel was bustling. Your great-aunt hosted gatherings, brought the community together. It was a place of hope and healing back then." Emma took the photo, studying the lively scene captured within. Cars lined the lot, families and travelers laughing on the porch, the motel alive with light and warmth. The contrast with the quiet stillness surrounding her now was stark. Yet, in that image, she saw a future waiting to be reclaimed. "Thank you," she said softly, "for sharing this with me." Harold smiled, his eyes twinkling. It's important you know you're not alone in this. Folks around here remember what this place meant. If you need help, don't hesitate to ask. Emma felt a swell of gratitude, the loneliness that had shadowed her since her arrival lifting just a little. The motel was more than a solitary project. It was a community, a living thread woven into the fabric of the town and its people. As the sun dipped lower, casting a warm glow through the dusty windows, Harold lingered a moment before turning toward the door. "I'll be around, and if you ever want to hear more stories, just say the word." Emma watched him go, the weight of the day's discoveries settling deep within her. The motel's past was not just hers to bear. It belonged to everyone who had found refuge here. With their support, perhaps she could find the strength to rebuild not only the building, but the spirit it once held. Closing the door behind him, Emma looked around the quiet office, the fading lights softening the edges of the worn furniture. The journey ahead was daunting, but now she understood she was part of something greater, a legacy of compassion and resilience that transcended time. And for the first time since she arrived, Emma felt the stirrings of hope bloom quietly within her heart. Night had fallen softly over the motel, wrapping the weathered building in a quiet stillness that felt both comforting and isolating. Emma stood inside the hidden room she had discovered days before. The sanctuary tucked away behind faded wallpaper. The soft glow of candlelight flickered across the cushions and shelves, casting gentle shadows that danced along the walls. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it the distant hoot of an owl and the occasional rustle of leaves. She had chosen to spend the night here, drawn by an instinct she couldn't quite explain, a need to confront the fears and doubts that had settled deep within her since arriving. The room's warmth contrasted sharply with the chill that clung to her thoughts. But as she sank into the cushions, a fragile peace began to take root. Emma pulled the leather-bound journal from the small table, its pages filled with the stories of those who had come seeking refuge within these walls. She had read many of them by daylight, but tonight, in the quiet darkness, the words seemed to speak directly to her soul. One entry told of a woman who had arrived broken by loss, her heart shattered by betrayal and grief. The motel had offered her a place to rest, to cry, to rebuild. Another spoke of a man haunted by mistakes, finding forgiveness in the compassionate silence of the room. Each story was a testament to resilience, to the power of kindness in the face of despair. Emma closed her eyes, letting the stories wash over her, mingling with the ache she carried inside. She thought of her own heartbreak, the sudden end of a relationship, the loneliness of impending motherhood, the fear of stepping into an uncertain future alone. The motel's legacy was not just history. It was a mirror reflecting her own struggle. A sudden gust of wind rattled the window panes, and Emma opened her eyes to the dim room. On the table lay a folded letter she hadn't noticed before, tucked beneath a worn photograph. Her fingers trembled as she unfolded it, revealing neat handwriting she recognized instantly, her great-aunt Margaret's. "My dear Emma," the letter began, "if you find yourself here, know that you are not alone. The road ahead may be hard, filled with shadows and doubt, but this place holds the light of many who have walked before you. Let their strength be your guide, and your heart your compass. Embrace the motel's purpose, and in doing so, you will find your own." Tears blurred Emma's vision as she read and reread the words. The letter was a lifeline, a reminder that the motel's walls were not just shelter, but sanctuary. It was as if her great-aunt had reached across time, offering comfort when she needed it most. She folded the letter carefully and clutched it to her chest, feeling a warmth spread through her despite the chill in the night air. The fears that had gnawed at her, the uncertainty, the pain, the loneliness, began to ease, replaced by a quiet resolve. As the hours passed, Emma allowed herself to sit with her emotions, to face the heartache without flinching. The hidden room seemed to hold her gently, a cocoon woven from the stories and love of generations. She whispered a promise to herself. She would carry the motel's legacy forward, not just as a keeper of property, but as a guardian of hope and healing. Outside, the first light of dawn began to touch the sky, soft hues of pink and gold filtering through the window. Emma rose, the letter still clutched in her hand, and looked out over the quiet grounds. The motel, with its faded walls and forgotten rooms, held the promise of new beginnings. She felt a strength within her, fragile but real, ready to face the challenges ahead. The past and future intertwined here, in this hidden sanctuary, and Emma knew she was no longer alone. With a steady breath, she stepped from the room into the awakening day, carrying with her the light of those who had come before, and the hope of those yet to come. The dawn light filtered softly through the grimy windows of the motel office as Emma sat at the battered desk, her hands folded over the worn guest book she had found tucked away in a dusty cabinet. Its pages were yellowed and fragile, filled with signatures, notes, and heartfelt messages left by those who had passed through the motel's doors over the decades. Each entry told a story of gratitude and hope, of pain met with kindness and sorrow, softened by sanctuary. Emma's eyes traced the flowing handwriting, pausing on a message scrawled in bold, hopeful strokes. "Thank you for giving me a place to heal when I had nowhere else to turn." The words resonated deeply, echoing the very purpose her great-aunt had woven into the motel's fabric. It was clear that this place had been a refuge, a quiet beacon for those navigating storms of their own. A swell of emotion rose within Emma, gratitude for the legacy entrusted to her, and a fierce determination to honor it. The motel was more than a building in need of repairs. It was a living testament to resilience and compassion. She knew now that reopening it meant embracing that spirit, transforming the faded rooms into sanctuaries once more. With renewed resolve, Emma began sketching plans for the motel's revival. She envisioned inviting those seeking solace, women escaping hardship, travelers burdened by loss, anyone craving a moment of peace. She imagined the hidden room restored as a place of quiet reflection, the guest book filled with new stories of healing. The work ahead was daunting. The building groaned with neglect, and the small town skepticism was palpable. But Emma felt fortified by the voices of past guests and the memory of her great-aunt's unwavering belief in the motel's mission. As she turned the guest book's fragile pages, a sudden knock at the door startled her. Rising, she opened it to find a young woman standing hesitantly on the threshold, her eyes weary but hopeful. "I heard about the motel reopening," the woman said softly. "I'm looking for a place to stay, somewhere safe." Emma's heart lifted. This was the beginning, the motel's legacy breathing anew through those in need. "Come in," Emma replied, stepping aside. "You're exactly who this place is for." In the days that followed, Emma worked tirelessly to prepare the rooms, infusing the space with warmth and care. She welcomed visitors with open arms, listening to their stories and offering the refuge the motel had long promised. The guest book began to fill once more, each entry a testament to the healing taking root within these walls. Though challenges persisted, the repairs, the doubts, the weight of her own fears, Emma found strength in the motel's purpose and the community forming around it. The legacy of hope and healing was alive, carried forward by those who believed in second chances. And as the sun set each evening, casting golden light across the motel's worn steps, Emma felt a quiet joy settle within her, a deep knowing that she was exactly where she needed to be, helping to write the next chapter in a story far greater than her own. The motel had come alive once more, its faded sign now freshly painted and swinging gently in the soft breeze. The gravel parking lot, once overrun with weeds, was swept clean, filled with cars bearing license plates from nearby towns and distant cities alike. Emma stood on the porch, the late afternoon sun warming her face as laughter and quiet conversations drifted from the open doors behind her. What had once been a lonely, forgotten place was now filled with the steady rhythm of life. Inside the office, the guest book lay open on the desk, pages filling rapidly with messages of gratitude and hope. Emma flipped through the entries, marveling at the stories written by those who had found refuge within the motel's walls. A young mother thanked the staff for providing a safe haven during a difficult transition. A traveler wrote of the kindness that rekindled his faith in strangers. A woman escaping an abusive past shared words of strength and renewal. Each note was a testament to the motel's healing legacy, a legacy Emma had vowed to protect and nurture. Her own journey had been woven into the fabric of the motel's revival, the heartbreak and fear, the moments of doubt and the quiet victories. Pregnancy had added urgency and tenderness to her mission, grounding her in a purpose greater than herself. The motel was no longer just a place to rebuild her life. It was a sanctuary where others could begin anew. As the evening settled, the office phone rang softly, its chime cutting through the ambient hum of activity. Emma answered, her voice steady but warm. "Hello, this is Emma." A woman's voice came through, trembling with emotion. "I just wanted to thank you. I stayed at the motel last week, and it changed everything for me. I'm safe now, and I have hope for the future. I don't know how to express what this place means to me." Emma's throat tightened, tears prickling her eyes. "That means more than I can say. We're here for you, and for anyone who needs a place to heal." After hanging up, Emma sat back, the weight of the moment settling around her. The motel's past had been filled with stories like these, and now, in the present, it continued to be a beacon for those seeking peace and renewal. Outside, the sky deepened into a tapestry of stars, the night alive with possibility. Emma stepped onto the porch, the cool air brushing against her skin. She placed a hand gently on her belly, feeling the steady kick of the life growing inside her. A new generation intertwined with the motel's enduring spirit. The journey had been long and fraught with uncertainty, but standing there, surrounded by the hum of life and the promise of tomorrow, Emma knew she was exactly where she needed to be. The motel was not just her inheritance. It was her legacy, and through it, the legacy of all who had found solace within its walls would continue to shine. With a quiet smile, Emma looked out into the night, ready to embrace the future, one filled with hope, healing, and the unbreakable strength of the human spirit.